You think you're living with intention, but are you really? Let's find out. You know that feeling you get when you've driven somewhere and you've arrived and you suddenly realize that you barely remember your drive over there. You realize that you've been driving on autopilot the whole time. How often do you think you're on autopilot as you go through your life as well? It may be more than you think. We don't notice it as much, but it does happen. It sneaks into your daily life unless you make a practice of being intentional. The problem with not being intentional in your life is that you're wasting a lot of your time on things that just don't matter to you. And this eats up the time that's available for fun and family and all the things that light you up. So today I'll share 7 subtle signs that you might be living less intentionally than you think. And then at the end, I'll also give you 5 powerful ways to start living with more purpose. So let's just dive right into it. Sign number 1, you default to routine without ever questioning it. Now, routines are not a bad thing. They actually have helped me be much more intentional with my life. The problem is when you don't question the default routines that you go to day in and day out to make sure that they're in alignment with what you want and what you need in your life right now. So here's a common one that I have had in the past and I still frequently get seduced by. It's grabbing my phone as soon as I wake up in the morning. I'll tell myself that I'll just check the weather and then I'll start looking at the news really quick, and before you know it, I'll have been scrolling away and time has gone by. Or what about the tendency to check email just as soon as you open your laptop, or every time you hear that ding? Really inefficient. Or what about when you ask someone how their day has been, but you're not really present and able to truly listen and connect at that point? I could keep going with lots more examples, but the point is that we often do things out of habit without being fully present. Now, the opposite of this is being intentional and being focused on whatever it is that you are doing at that moment because you made a conscious decision to do it. So the second sign is that you automatically say yes. How often do you find yourself accepting invitations, making commitments, or agreeing to people's requests without first checking to see if it's in alignment with your priorities? To be able to answer this really honestly, you have to think about what your true priorities are from time to time. And then you also have to remember when someone's asking you. So if you're like me, you really need to have these someplace where you can remind yourself of them quite often. I do this pretty much daily because I have my core values listed in the front of my journal. The third sign, you fill silence and free time with distraction. We are constantly entertained these days in one way or another. So much so that most people will reach for their phone every time there's a pause in their life. Maybe you're in a waiting room or you're waiting in line or even during meals. The question to ask yourself is, how comfortable are you waiting with nothing to do but to simply sit there and observe? And trust me, if you are resonating with this, you are definitely not alone. I have made huge strides in this area, but I'm still working on it. The fourth sign, you rarely pause to celebrate life. How much of your life these days feels like a constant to-do list versus how much time do you spend lingering to savor life? The feel of the breeze on your skin, or the beauty in nature, the taste of your food. We may think that we don't have time for savoring life, but if you think about it, in reality, it only takes a few seconds of presence, just scattered throughout the course of a day, to turn what could be a mediocre day into a very enjoyable one. Most people just don't intentionally do this. The pressure to always be on the go, go, go and to do, it becomes challenging to break out of that pattern. So it takes practice. It takes intention. Sign number 5, you're constantly future focused. Have you ever been on vacation and you're already starting to plan your next one? Or you're eating your breakfast, and while you're doing that, you're focused on what you're going to make for lunch or for dinner. There is nothing wrong with planning. Living intentionally actually requires planning. The problem comes in when you are always planning forward and you're missing out on the moments right now, right here in the now. Most people do this. In fact, it becomes a really challenge not to. It requires a certain level of awareness to notice that you're doing it, and then to intentionally stop and be present. Sign number 6, you can't remember the last time you felt awe. We get inspiration and we feel wonderful inside when we feel awe. When you look overhead and notice the color of the sky, or you watch a plane flying overhead and how amazing that really is. There's any number of things that can inspire awe if you let them. Feeling awe just requires you to intentionally slow down enough to really notice things. Number 7, you're busy but you feel unfulfilled. There's a good chance that if the productivity is there in your life, but you're not feeling joy and connection, you aren't truly being intentional with your time. And it's very easy to find yourself in this place. I have certainly been there. Every day had started to feel like I was on a treadmill, just waking up, getting ready for work, working all day, coming home, fixing dinner, getting ready for the next day, and then just starting it all over again. The good thing is there is a way out of this state. It's living with greater intention. It's actually the way out of all these signs we've been talking about. So let's talk about 5 ways that you can be more intentional and make the most of your life right now and in the future as well. First of all, ask yourself good questions. Here's a really good daily question for you. Instead of just asking yourself, what do I need to do today? Also ask, what do I need today to feel well and nurtured? And what would make my heart happy today? These 2 questions, they help you to look beyond all the responsibilities and the demands of other people to actually include you in the equation as well. And then quarterly, or at least at a minimum annually, you'll want to set aside some time to ask yourself, what matters most right now? And then find a place to post these things where you can remind yourself of them often. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I list these in the front of my journal. I have my core values here, and then the main goals that I'm working on a little further in. It's really important to make a thoughtful plan when you're asking yourself the question about what matters most to you. And this is because it will help you to ensure that the day-to-day activities in your life are aligning with your values and your priorities. If you don't already use a journal, this is something that I really highly recommend, even if it's just a lined notebook. My journal is probably the most effective tool that I have for keeping myself intentional. I not only ask myself these questions, but I use it to practice positivity in the areas of my life that I need it the most. Much of my journal time isn't in the traditional way that most people use a journal. Some of it is, but a lot of it's not. If you're interested in finding more about how I journal, you can watch my video, 7 Ways That Journaling Will Change Your Life. So the second thing that I suggest you do is to interrupt your routines with little micro adventures. Maybe you try walking down a different street if you're going on a walk, or cook a cuisine that you've never tried before, or go to a place that you've never been. And this is because doing new things and exploring different options really exercises that curiosity muscle, and it helps you to be more present to what you're doing while you're doing it. And the reason for this is because that new things, they require greater focus, and they require you to practice being more mindful and present when you're doing them. And so that leads me to the third one, which is single tasking. This is really very similar to the last one, but you don't have to go on a micro adventure of any kind to do it. It's really deciding to practice just giving your full attention to certain activities, such as while you're eating a meal, or having a conversation, or even something like cleaning up the kitchen. When you're mindful, you are intentional with your movements And in the process, you're more likely to find efficiencies or how you best enjoy doing something. The next one is to schedule moments of awe. One of my favorite ways to get a little awe into my day is to take a walk, either at sunrise or sunset. I just love the way the light looks on everything at these times of days. In the morning, you may notice things like the dew sparkling on the grass or even on a spider web. And the sky is an easy place to search for awe, whether it's the color of the sky or the clouds or a starry sky. And also just taking a moment longer to look at something in nature, a little longer than you normally would look at something, this too can invite a sense of awe. You might notice things like the patterns of color in a flower, or tiny ants doing their work, or little patterns of fuzz on leaves, or perhaps you watch the way a turtle pedals its tiny little webbed feet as it swims through the water, instead of just simply focusing on his head and its shell like we might normally do. There are endless fascinating things to watch in nature. The fifth thing is to reclaim your yes and your no. And you do this by slowing down your response time. You usually don't have to give an answer immediately, even though you may feel like it. Take advantage of this whenever you can to really practice giving yourself time to consider your priorities and what your needs are. It's really okay to say, let me check my schedule and get back to you tomorrow. I mean, nobody thinks twice about that. This gives you time to consider and to say yes to what lights you up and to say no to what drains you. You can choose what you do with intention instead of from obligation. Practicing all 5 of these suggestions really can make a dramatic change in your life. It certainly has for mine. The reality is that we never know how long we're going to be here, and life is really too short to sleepwalk through it, get to the end, and then wish you'd done things differently. You can make small intentional shifts today to ensure you have a life that you have lived well. Now, on the back of my journals, I always have a little quote that I created that kind of sums this up. This is my hope for you, a life well lived. I hope that you can take away at least one small idea from the video today that will help lead you in that direction. Let me know in the comments if any of this really resonated with you today, or if you have any other suggestions for being more intentional that we can share here together today. Thanks for watching.